How does a man end up being told, in front of almost 200 churchgoers, that there is no place for him at his own grandson's baptism, and then have his daughter call him nonstop the very next morning? I stood at the church doors in my museum security uniform while my own child blocked the entrance and told me to leave like I was a stranger. I walked away, made one quiet phone call, and by sunrise, the balance of power in our family and in that church had changed completely. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? Sunday morning, 6:30. I woke before the alarm, the way I always do now at 63. My small apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when only one person lives somewhere. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at Eleanor's photograph on the nightstand. My wife, smiling in our backyard 20 years ago, she would have loved today, would have bought a new dress, baked something special, fussed over every detail of our grandson's baptism. I showered and dressed with care. Navy suit, the one I bought for Natalie's wedding 3 years ago. White shirt, ironed last night. Burgundy tie. Eleanor always said it brought out the warmth in my eyes. Shoes polished until they reflected the overhead light. Chief of Security at the City Art Museum sounds impressive until you realize it means watching camera feeds and making sure nobody touches the paintings. 34 years at the same building. People joke that I am part of the permanent collection now. At 7:30, I made coffee and ate toast standing at the counter. The baptism invitation sat propped against the sugar bowl. Thick cream cardstock with elegant script. Mason Andrew Briggs, my grandson, 3 months old. I had seen him twice since he was born. I picked up my museum security badge from the counter, the laminated card with my unsmiling photo. 34 years of walking the same halls, learning every corner, knowing which donors gave how much and when, learning to be invisible until needed. I set it down and checked my watch. 8:15. The baptism started at 10. St. Matthew's was 20 minutes away. The drive took me through the old neighborhood where Natalie grew up, past the elementary school, past the park where I taught her to ride a bike. The houses looked smaller now, the trees taller. St. Matthew's sat on a corner lot, red brick with a white steeple. The parking lot was half full when I arrived at 9:30. Expensive cars, mostly. SUVs that cost more than I made in a year. I parked my 12-year-old sedan in the back row. Through the windshield, I watched people arrive, women in pastel dresses, men in tailored suits. I recognized faces from Natalie's wedding, Trevor's family mostly, then I saw her. Natalie standing at the top of the church steps in a pale blue dress that probably cost as much as my monthly rent. Hair swept up, makeup perfect, smile bright and practiced. She was greeting people like a politician's wife. Trevor stood beside her, tall, confident, charcoal suit. Real estate developer, he always made sure people knew. At 36, he carried himself like a man who had never been told no. I watched them for a full minute. They looked happy, successful, like a family from a magazine advertisement. I did not see myself anywhere in that picture. I opened the car door and walked across the parking lot. As I got closer, I heard fragments of conversation, compliments on Natalie's dress, questions about the baby, Trevor talking about a development project. Natalie saw me when I was 20 feet away. Her smile faltered, then came back harder, like armor. I climbed the steps. "Good morning, sweetheart." She did not move to hug me. "Dad, you came." "Of course. It's Mason's baptism." Trevor turned. "Leonard, glad you could make it." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I moved toward the entrance. Natalie stepped in front of me. "Dad, we need to talk for a second." The church bells began to ring. 10 o'clock, people streamed past us. "What's wrong?" I kept my voice low. Natalie glanced at Trevor. Some wordless communication passed between them. "There's been a misunderstanding about the seating. We have limited space, and with Trevor's family and the godparents and the parish council members, we are absolutely packed. We thought you understood that today was more of an intimate family thing." I stared at her. "I am family." "Of course you are. But this is also a really important moment for us socially. Father Andrew is here, and the parish treasurer, and some of Trevor's biggest clients. We need everything to be perfect. And honestly, Dad, you have not been well lately, and we worried that having you here might be stressful for you." "I am perfectly well." "You seem tired, and we know how you feel about crowds. We just thought it would be easier if maybe you sat this one out. We can send you pictures?" Around us, the crowd had thinned. Most people were inside now. The bells stopped ringing. "You are telling me there is no place for me at my own grandson's baptism." Natalie's jaw tightened. "Do not make this into something it's not. We are trying to be considerate. My needs? Yes. And honestly, Dad, you showing up in your work clothes is not exactly the image we are trying to project. I looked down at my suit, the one I had carefully chosen, carefully pressed. These are not my work clothes. You know what I mean, just please. Can you do this one thing for us? I looked past her into the church. Through the open doors, I could see the sanctuary filling. The baptismal font decorated with white flowers. Father Andrew in his vestments. Nearly 200 people, none of them here for me. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, at the calculation in her eyes, the way she stood between me and the door like security. Sweetheart, I said, my voice steadier than expected. I understand. Relief washed over her face. You do? Thank God. I knew you would understand. I understand completely. I took a step back. Trevor put his arm around Natalie's shoulders. They both watched me with identical expressions of satisfied victory. I will let you have your day. I turned and walked back down the steps. Behind me, the church doors closed with a soft, final sound. In the parking lot, I leaned against my car. My hands were shaking, so I put them in my pockets. The church bell started again, joyful and loud, announcing the ceremony. I stood there for a long moment, looking at the building, at the stained glass windows and the white steeple and the expensive cars. Then I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Harold Quinn's number. Harold and I had known each other for 20 years. He had handled Eleanor's will when she passed, helped me set up the trust for Mason, played chess with me every third Thursday. The phone rang 3 times. Leonard, is everything all right? Inside the church, I could hear singing starting, faint and distant. Harold, I said, I need to talk to you today, as soon as possible. Today? It's Sunday morning. I know what day it is. A pause, then quieter. Where are you? Standing outside St. Matthew's Church. I thought you had your grandson's baptism. I watched the church doors. Closed. Final. I did, I said. That is why I'm calling. Back at my apartment, I hung my suit jacket over the chair and loosened my tie, feeling the weight of the morning settle onto my shoulders. The place still smelled of the coffee I had made before leaving, a small reminder of how normal the day had begun. Now the apartment felt strangely hollow. I sat at the oak table Eleanor and I had bought at an estate sale when we were newly married. We had eaten every meal here, filled out paperwork here, helped Natalie with homework here. Today, the table was just a surface to steady myself while I tried to make sense of what had happened. My daughter had barred me from my grandson's baptism. Not quietly, not privately. She had done it in front of nearly 200 people, looking me in the eye as if this were a reasonable boundary and not a complete erasure. I kept replaying the moment, wondering how we had ended up here. I went to the filing cabinet and pulled out the folder labeled Natalie Financial. 10 years of records, each page a reminder of a decision made out of love, trust, and the belief that family meant something unshakable. I had paid $47,000 toward her college tuition, carefully covering every installment so she could graduate without debt. Then came the wedding expenses. $14,000, paid gladly, even though Eleanor wasn't alive to see it. But the house was the real turning point. Natalie and Trevor wanted a home in a good neighborhood, but couldn't afford the down payment. Trevor had suggested forming an LLC, Kane Holdings, registered in my name, so I could purchase the house and they could rent it until things stabilized. I had agreed, thinking it was a way to support them. Now, looking at the documents, I saw clearly what I hadn't wanted to see. I still owned 70% of the property. I had provided $92,000 for the down payment, given them below-market rent for 2 years, and then paused rent altogether when Natalie said they were having temporary issues. That pause had lasted 18 months. Worse, they had refinanced twice. Trevor had brought me the papers, smiling, offering whiskey, insisting it was a better interest rate that would benefit all of us. They had pulled $60,000 from the home's equity. None of that money had ever returned to me. The next folder was Mason's education trust, the one tied to Eleanor's last request. On one of her final days, she had squeezed my hand and made me promise to ensure our grandchildren had opportunities, no matter what happened between me and Natalie. So I had set up the trust, $50,000, structured strictly for tuition, books, or housing. Natalie knew about it, thanked me, then immediately wanted it used for nursery furniture. When I explained that it was for Mason's future, not his crib, she had backed off. But I remembered the disappointed look in her eyes, as if I had denied her something owed. I looked over everything spread across the table, nearly $200,000 invested into their lives. And the reward was being told, publicly, that there was no place for me in the family I had spent my life supporting. My phone buzzed. A text from Omar, my coworker on the museum night shift. Thought you had a family event today. Everything good? I typed back. Finished early, all fine. A lie easier than an explanation? I made fresh coffee and stood at the window watching the parking lot below. Couples unloading groceries, kids on bikes, people living their unremarkable Sundays while mine felt like it had cracked down the center. Then the phone rang. Harold. I'm heading into the office, he said. Can you meet me in an hour? On a Sunday? You said it was urgent. I think you're right. I packed the folders into my old leather briefcase. As I closed it, memories surfaced uninvited. Natalie at 8, curling into my lap with a book. Natalie at 16, crying over a breakup. Natalie at 25, smiling at me before walking down the aisle. When had that affection hardened into something cold? I thought of last Christmas at Trevor's parents' home. They had seated me at the far end of the table to give everyone more room. The toast to family hadn't included my name. Later, I noticed all the framed photos, engagement shots, maternity portraits, newborn pictures. None of me. When I asked, Natalie had laughed and said they were keeping the decor minimal and cohesive. Apparently, I wasn't part of the cohesion. At the museum, people joked that the building would collapse without me. Donors knew me, respected the work I did. Trevor didn't see any of that. To him, I was just a man in a cheap suit standing by a door. Eleanor had once warned me, kindness without boundaries is permission to be used. I hadn't understood it then. I did now. Harold met me at his office, dressed casually. I told him everything, from the moment I stepped onto the church steps to the moment Natalie closed the door in my face. Harold listened silently, then asked for all the financial documents. I handed him the folders. He read for 20 minutes before speaking. Leonard, do you realize what you own? You hold 70% of a home worth $430,000. They owe you $19,000 in unpaid rent, and they've pulled $60,000 in equity, your equity. He moved on to the trust. This is clean, untouchable. They can't access a cent. Then he found the letter of intent I had signed for St. Matthew's, a non-binding promise to consider donating $25,000 for renovations. I had paid $5,000, then heard nothing more, likely because Trevor had stepped in as the family representative. Quiet erasure worked best when handled administratively. People have mistaken your generosity for weakness, Harold said gently. They assumed you'd tolerate anything. He outlined the next steps, formal requests for all updated LLC and trust documents, a review of parish communications, and a full reconstruction of financial ties. Only then would we discuss options, measured ones, but decisive. I mentioned that at the museum I had meaningful relationships with major donors, people who listened when I spoke. Harold's expression shifted slightly, the first sign of optimism since I arrived. Good. That may give you more leverage than you think. He told me not to contact Natalie or Trevor. Let them believe stability remained. Let them feel safe. When I stood to leave, a final doubt rose in my throat. Harold, what if I'm overreacting? He looked at me with the steadiness of someone who had seen families break apart for decades. Leonard, he said, you were shut out of your grandson's baptism. You're not overreacting. You're finally reacting. Monday morning at the museum looked the same as always. The gray stone building, founded in 1927, stood quiet in the early light. I arrived at 6:45 and entered through the staff door, heading down to the basement security office. Omar was finishing his night shift, the monitors glowing across his tired face. Morning, Leonard. Quiet night. I settled into my chair, scanning the peaceful galleries. These early hours were always my favorite. Omar lingered, studying me. So, how was the family thing yesterday? Fine. You look tired. I am 63. I always look tired. Not like this. After a pause. People who say nothing to worry about usually have everything to worry about. He was a good man, younger, with 2 teenagers, and a wife who taught middle school, working nights to save for college. Someone used me, I said quietly. Someone I trusted. Family or money? Both. The worst kind. He grabbed his jacket. If you need to talk, you know where to find me. After he left, the morning unfolded on the monitors. Custodial staff at 7, admin at 8, Sylvia Morton at 8:30 with her expensive coffee. At 9, Harold called. I have the information. Lunch? Noon. Oh, the morning dragged. I logged visitor counts, directed a school group, and pretended to focus. At 11:45, I drove to Harold's firm. He had papers spread across a conference table. The LLC is more complicated than I thought, he said, pushing a folder toward me. Ownership transfer was supposed to increase as they paid rent, but they stopped 18 months ago, so the transfer stopped. They own 30%. You own 70. He tapped another sheet. They refinanced twice. Both times they needed your signature. They told you it was for interest rates and improvements. He slid over bank records. They pulled $60,000 in equity and funneled it straight into Trevor's real estate company. Cold settled in my chest. Is that legal? Not without disclosure and informed consent. You signed a standard refinancing agreement, not a business loan secured by your property. He moved to the trust. The $50,000 fund is clean, but Natalie tried to access it 4 months ago, claimed it was for educational materials. He raised an eyebrow. For an infant. Denied twice. She threatened to move the trust. The bank called me. I blocked it. I let out a breath. She never said a word. She knew you'd refuse. He opened another folder. And St. Matthew's is even more interesting. I spoke with Clara Hayes. My stomach tightened. She said they expect your ongoing support, including the $25,000 pledge. They were told by the family that Trevor would handle communications. I never said that. I know. But Trevor joined the parish council a year ago. Shortly after, he informed them you were stepping back due to health concerns, but still wanted to support the church. Quietly, through him, he positioned himself as the family's representative. I stared at the table. So, the pledge is in your name, but the parish thinks Trevor manages it. And there's a donor recognition event in 2 weeks. Donor Appreciation Sunday. Trevor and Natalie are listed as honored guests representing the Kane Briggs Family Charitable Foundation. We don't have a family charitable foundation. Correct, but the parish believes you do, and that Trevor runs it. The pieces click together, one after another. He's using my money, my pledges, my reputation, all of it, to polish his own image. Yes, and his company is pitching a $200 million development. City approval depends on reputation and connections. 3 council members attend St. Matthew's. The mayor's wife is on the parish council. I closed my eyes briefly. Trevor had recently asked about donor events at the museum, whether he could meet patrons. Leonard, Harold said softly, you've been a resource. Your generosity, your property, your connections, your name, and when you became inconvenient to his narrative, you were removed, with Natalie helping. Yes. I looked at the paperwork showing how thoroughly I had been used. What are my options? For the house, demand back rent, block refinancing, or force a sale. For the trust, adjust terms to guarantee Mason receives it directly. For the church, withdraw or redirect your pledge, or fulfill it with explicit recognition that it comes from you alone. I walked to the window, staring out at the gray November sky. Trevor was out there, building an empire on foundations I'd paid for. Natalie was managing corporate clients. Mason was with a nanny, unaware of any of this. I need time, I said. Take it. But the longer you wait, the more entrenched his story becomes. That night, I sat at my oak table, reviewing Harold's folders. I made a list. House, $301,000 in equity, $19,000 unpaid rent, $60,000 misused. Trust, $50,000 protected, terms adjustable. Church, $20,000 remaining on pledge. Credit currently attributed to Trevor. Museum, donor connections worth millions. At the bottom, I wrote, I will stop paying to be erased. I stared at the sentence for a long time. Eleanor's voice echoed in memory. Sometimes kindness is just letting people hurt you. But I wasn't Eleanor. I was the man who watched, documented, and waited for the right moment. And the right moment was approaching. Tuesday morning, I requested a personal day, my first in 2 years. Sylvia approved it instantly. With over 300 hours of unused leave, she didn't even ask why. I left the museum before anyone could start a conversation and drove straight to First National Bank. It was time to see everything with clear eyes. At 9, I sat across from Patricia Chen, who listened carefully as I explained what I needed. Full statements on all accounts under my name or connected LLCs, especially Kane Holdings. She typed for a while, then frowned. That is your real estate holding company? Yes. When she turned her screen toward me, numbers and transaction codes filled the display. She pointed at 2 large withdrawals, $30,000 18 months ago, another $30,000 6 months ago, both sent directly to Briggs Development Corporation. These required your signature as majority owner. You signed these forms? I remembered Trevor arriving with a folder, the pages neatly tabbed, smiling as if we were partners in something meaningful. Just refinancing to adjust the mortgage terms, Lenny, he had said. Not one word about $60,000 being pulled from my equity and funneled into his business. Is this legal? I asked. Patricia hesitated. Only if you understood what you were signing. These documents are sophisticated. If you thought this was routine refinancing and were not informed of equity withdrawals or transfers to a private company, that could be a disclosure issue. I already knew it was more than that. I asked her to print everything: market value, remaining mortgage, my ownership share. The house was worth $430,000. The mortgage was $129,000. My 70% came to just over $210,000. If I forced a sale, I could walk away with more than $200,000. If they wanted to buy me out, they'd need the same, and they didn't have it. Then I asked about the trust. Patricia checked. Yes. In July, someone attempted to withdraw funds for educational materials. Denied due to beneficiary age. The requester appealed. Denied again. The requester was Natalie Briggs. And what did she say? She claimed you had verbally authorized the withdrawal. We asked her to have you contact us. You never did, so the denial remained. So she had lied. Directly. Willingly. I thanked Patricia and left with a thick folder. The weight of it felt like the weight of truth. Next, I drove to the cafe near St. Matthew's. I had asked Clara Hayes to meet me. She arrived exactly on time, carrying a small notebook and the kind of polite warmth you learn from years of parish life. Leonard, she said, it's good to see you. We've missed you. I didn't correct her. Instead, I asked about my pledge. How much had been fulfilled? How much remained? She reviewed her notes. You pledged $25,000 over 5 years. You paid $5,000 the first year. Trevor has been handling the remaining schedule, though payments haven't yet begun. He said you preferred all giving to be routed through him now, considering your health. I set down my coffee. Clara, what health concerns? She looked uncomfortable. Trevor told us you'd been having memory issues. Nothing severe, just occasional confusion. He asked us not to mention it to you so you wouldn't feel embarrassed. Memory issues. I thought about the security logs I maintained daily, the incident reports, the donor event schedules I could recall without checking. He had painted me as senile to the church. Clara, you've known me for years. Have you ever seen me forget anything important? No, she admitted quietly. Never. She looked shaken, so I explained, briefly but honestly, what had happened at the baptism, how I'd been blocked at the door, how I'd been erased from things I had paid for and built. She pressed a hand to her mouth. We were told you were too unwell to attend. We even passed around a get well card. She closed her eyes. Oh, Leonard, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. It wasn't your fault. You were misled. She flipped through her notebook again. Trevor also told us you wanted to step away from public recognition. That's why we plan to honor the Kane Briggs family at Donor Appreciation Sunday instead of recognizing you individually. There is no family foundation, I said. I made that pledge long before Trevor arrived. She nodded slowly. What do you want us to do? I want the record corrected. I will complete the remaining $20,000, but only under my name, and Trevor is not to represent me in any capacity. We'll fix it, she promised. Before I left, I asked, if I had passed away last year, would you have said I was confused and declining? Or that I was a faithful parishioner who carried myself with dignity? She answered softly, You've always been the latter. I returned to the museum early for my shift. Omar looked up as I stepped into the office. You look different, he said. Different how? Like something shifted, like you finally decided something. I did. That's good, he said. Sometimes staying still hurts more than moving forward. That night, the museum was quiet. The marble Athena in the Renaissance wing watched over the empty halls. In modern art, harsh colors glowed under soft lights. Children's paintings in the education wing fluttered slightly when the HVAC kicked on. I had protected this building for 34 years. Maybe it was time to protect myself with the same vigilance. My phone buzzed. A message from Harold. Everything is ready to file. Once we begin, there's no going back. I wrote back. Good. On the monitor, Sylvia walked through the admin wing, turning off lights one by one. I watched her wave at the camera. I opened my calendar. Tuesday, November 12. Donor Appreciation Sunday was 12 days away. 12 days to expose the truth. 12 days before the image Trevor built on my money, my equity, and my reputation collapsed. I thought of Natalie, unaware of anything, putting Mason to bed. I thought of Trevor, pitching investors, building an empire on foundations about to give way. They believed I would accept anything to stay close to my grandson. They were wrong. I opened Natalie's contact. Her smiling wedding photo stared back at me. Once, that smile had been honest. Once, I had been her hero. I didn't text. I didn't call. I simply returned to the monitors and kept watch. 12 days until I stopped being invisible. The next week passed in suspended tension. I went to work, came home, ate simple meals, and waited for the moment everything would break open. I didn't call Natalie. I didn't answer her occasional shallow text asking if I was doing okay or reminding me about Thanksgiving plans I had never agreed to attend. Harold checked in every day. Everything is ready to file, he reminded me. The trust modifications, the LLC amendments, the updated will, say the word, and we execute. On Monday, November 18th, Clara called. Leonard, Father Andrew and I met with the parish council. We reviewed donor records and corrected everything. You'll be recognized individually on Sunday, exactly as your pledge states. Trevor was not pleased. What did he say? He insisted there must be a mistake. He claimed you agreed to joint recognition. I showed him the original pledge document, your name alone, dated before he ever joined the council. After that, he didn't have much to say. Thank you, Clara. There's more. We sent the event program to all honorees. Your name is listed with a note thanking you for your generosity. Trevor called Father Andrew this morning and said you were too unwell to attend, and that he would accept the acknowledgement on your behalf. My jaw tightened. And what did Father Andrew say? He said if you were too unwell, he would need to hear it from you directly. He tried calling. Did you see his voicemails? 3 missed calls. I had been avoiding anything church-related. Tell him I'll be there, I said. I'll speak for myself. One more thing, Clara added. Trevor asked if we could postpone your recognition until spring. He said you might feel better by then. He wants time to rewrite the narrative. That was my thought, too. Father Andrew declined. Your pledge predates Trevor's involvement. After we hung up, I finally listened to the priest's voicemail inviting me to speak for a few minutes after the final blessing. I called him back immediately and accepted. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table drafting what I'd say. Not a speech, just clean statements of fact. But how do you tell 200 people that your own family lied about your health, controlled your donations, and erased you from your own commitments? Eleanor's voice surfaced. Lenny, the truth is not an attack. After several revisions, I had this. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to clarify my involvement with the parish renovation. 2 years ago, I personally pledged $25,000 toward the project. This pledge was made solely in my name, from my own savings. I have fulfilled $5,000 so far, and will complete the rest directly. Some of you may have been told I stepped back from public recognition due to health concerns. I want to be clear. I have no health issues preventing participation in this community. I am present, capable, and grateful for the parish's support. Going forward, all charitable commitments from me will be made directly in my own name. Short, calm, unmistakable. Omar looked at me later that night. Big week? Yes. What's happening? I'm taking back something that was stolen from me. About time, he said. On Thursday, Sylvia called me into her office. Leonard, I need to talk to you about the winter gala. Trevor Briggs has been very persistent about being included. He called again yesterday asking about your role. I told him you're directing your giving elsewhere. He seemed surprised. He doesn't know yet. He asked if you were upset with him. I told him that's private, but he's pushing, Leonard. Let him push. He'll learn the answers on Sunday. She studied me. In 15 years, I've never seen you confront anyone. Are you sure you're ready? I thought of the documents prepared to file. The trust shielded. The LLC reclaimed, the speech in my pocket. I am, I said. Friday evening, Harold and I met for dinner. He brought a final folder. These are copies of everything we've prepared. Keep them safe. If anyone claims you were confused or coerced, this proves you acted knowingly. Do you think they'll try that? I think Trevor will do anything to protect his image. If it becomes public he lied about your health and used your money without consent, it harms his development project. His entire persona hinges on credibility. Good. Harold looked at me with a hint of sadness. You've changed. Not unkind. Just done being taken advantage of. I'm not harder, I said. Just finished being soft. He nodded. Are you nervous about Sunday? No. What will you say? I handed him my notes. He read them slowly. Clear. Controlled. But you understand this will end any remaining relationship with Natalie. She will see this as betrayal. She betrayed me first. This is just the truth. He hesitated. Are you prepared to lose access to Mason? I already lost access, I said quietly. I'm choosing dignity over disappearance. Saturday felt strange, calm on the surface, restless underneath. I cleaned, chose my clothes, polished my shoes the way Eleanor had taught me. I rehearsed my statement in front of the mirror. My reflection looked older than I remembered, but steady. I slept in fragments, headlights sweeping across my ceiling. At 6 a.m., the alarm sounded. Sunday, November 24th, Donor Appreciation Day. Harold's text arrived at 8:15. Everything is filed. Once you speak today, there is no going back. I put on my jacket, looked once around my apartment. This was it. I stepped outside and locked the door. The drive to St. Matthew's felt longer than usual. I left early and still arrived at 9:30, half an hour before Mass. The parking lot was already filling, cars pulling in steadily, families stepping out in pressed clothes, carrying diaper bags, coffee cups, and quiet morning chatter. I parked in the same space I had used on the day of the baptism, far end, back row, where I had stood wondering how my own daughter could look me in the eye and say there was no room. I sat with my hands on the wheel, breathing slowly, watching the flow of people through the windshield. Then I saw them. Trevor, immaculate in a tailored dark suit, holding Mason in one arm, Natalie beside him in a cream dress that looked expensive, curated, intentional. The picture-perfect couple again. They climbed the steps together, paused to greet Father Andrew, and I watched Trevor gesture animatedly while Natalie laughed, performing ease. I opened the car door and stepped into the cold November air. I buttoned my suit jacket, it suddenly felt heavier than usual, and began walking toward the entrance. Clara was stationed near the doors, greeting parishioners as they arrived. When she noticed me, her face lit up with genuine warmth. She murmured something to the person beside her and walked down the steps to meet me. "Leonard, I'm so glad you're here." "Thank you," I said quietly. "And thank you for making sure I was welcome." "You were always welcome. We simply didn't realize we needed to make that explicit." She glanced discreetly up the steps toward Natalie and Trevor. "They don't know you're speaking today. Father Andrew felt it would be better if they heard it in the moment." "That's probably the right call." "Are you ready?" I touched the folded notes in my jacket pocket. "As ready as I'll ever be." She gave my arm a brief, reassuring squeeze and returned to her place. I continued up the steps. Natalie noticed me when I was only a few feet away. Surprise flickered across her face, then confusion, then the smooth, polite smile she used for social settings. "Dad? What are you doing here?" "Attending Mass," I said simply. "Same as you." Trevor turned. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Leonard, we weren't aware you were planning to come today." I looked at him steadily. "Why would you be? I don't need your awareness or permission to attend church." Before they could respond, Father Andrew stepped forward. "Leonard, wonderful to see you," he said warmly. "We're honored you could join us this morning." "Thank you for the invitation," I replied. Natalie blinked. "Invitation?" "Leonard has agreed to share a few words during our donor recognition," Father Andrew said, his tone smooth and diplomatic. "We are grateful he accepted." Trevor's eyes narrowed. "I see. I wasn't informed of any such arrangement." "It was finalized just this week," the priest replied. "If you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for Mass." He left us standing there. Natalie leaned in, lowering her voice. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Exactly what I was asked to do," I said. "Speak." "About what?" "About my support for this parish, and about the truth." Her eyes widened. Trevor stepped forward, trying to recover control. "Leonard, if this is about the baptism, we can discuss it privately. There's no need to make a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I said evenly. "I'm fulfilling a request made by the parish. Unless you believe my speaking is a problem?" Trevor hesitated. He had no answer. Natalie exhaled sharply. "We should go inside. Mass is starting." We entered the sanctuary. Donor Appreciation Sunday had drawn nearly every family in the parish. The pews were full, sunlight catching on polished wood and stained glass. Natalie and Trevor took their usual place in the third pew, front and center, visible. I walked past them and sat near the back, where Eleanor and I had sat for years. A few familiar faces nodded to me, people who remembered the decades I had spent here, not just the last few years of Trevor's curated social presence. Mass began. The organ played, the choir sang. We rose and knelt and recited prayers I had known since childhood. But my thoughts hovered ahead, on what I was about to do, on the two people seated 3 rows from the front, on the murmured lies that had woven themselves into parish perception. Father Andrew's homily was about generosity, integrity, and the quiet responsibilities of community. He spoke about giving without claiming credit that doesn't belong to you. Whether he meant it pointedly or not, I couldn't tell. Then the final blessing was given. Before anyone could rise, Father Andrew stepped forward again. "Before we move to the parish hall," he said, I'd like to take a moment to recognize members of our community whose generosity has supported St. Matthew's mission. And first, I've asked one of our longtime contributors to share a few words. Leonard Kane, would you join us at the front? A hush fell. I stood. My legs were steady. I walked down the aisle, past rows of parishioners turning to watch me, past Natalie and Trevor. When I passed their pew, Natalie's face looked pale, confused. Trevor's jaw was locked tight. Good, I thought. Now you know how it felt to be erased. I reached the front. Father Andrew handed me the microphone and stepped back. I unfolded my notes. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, I began, my voice calm. I want to clarify some things about my support for this parish. The congregation listened. For the past 2 years, I have pledged $25,000 toward the renovation of our parish hall. This pledge was made in my name, from my personal savings, without involvement from any family representative or foundation. I saw people shift. Some glanced toward Trevor. I have fulfilled $5,000 of that pledge, and I will complete the rest directly on my own terms. I continued, steady. Some of you may have heard that I stepped back from public recognition due to health concerns. I want to be clear, I have no such concerns. I am fully capable of participating in this community. Trevor's face hardened. Natalie stared, stricken. I mention this because there has been confusion about who contributed what. My pledge was made independently before my son-in-law joined the parish council. It remains my personal commitment. I paused deliberately, then finished. Going forward, any charitable commitments from me will be made directly, in my name, with no intermediaries. I folded the paper and handed back the microphone. Silence. Then Clara began to clap. Others joined, hesitant at first, then more firmly. Not everyone, but enough that the message landed. I walked back to my pew. My heart was steady now, the hardest part finished. After Mass, as people moved toward the parish hall, several parishioners approached to shake my hand or nod quietly. A few avoided eye contact, especially those who had aligned themselves socially with Trevor. I poured myself coffee and stood near the back of the hall, observing. Trevor and Natalie were surrounded by people, some offering sympathy, others clearly asking uncomfortable questions. I watched Trevor's father approach them, his expression severe. A sharp exchange followed. Trevor gestured defensively. His father shook his head and walked away. Father Andrew approached me. Your words were more direct than expected, he said gently. Too direct? No, he said. Truthful. Necessary. I regret that I accepted Trevor's explanations at face value. You trusted him, I said. That isn't a sin. It is when the trust was misplaced. Soon after, Natalie and Trevor approached with Mason. Their faces were tight. Natalie stopped in front of me. How could you do that? She whispered fiercely. How could you humiliate us like that? I told the truth, I said. If the truth humiliates you, you might ask why. You made us look like liars. You are liars. Trevor stepped closer, voice low. This isn't over. You just made a very serious mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. I won't repeat it. You'll regret this, he hissed. The only thing I regret, I said quietly, is not doing it sooner. They stormed out. I stayed until the commotion settled, then slipped out a side door. In my car, I sat for a moment, letting the stillness catch up with me. It was done. At home, I hung up my jacket, made coffee, and finally called Harold. It's out, I said. Everyone knows. Good. Be ready. Natalie will call. He was right. Within the hour, my phone lit up again and again. Calls, messages, accusations, demands. I didn't answer. Not once. I had said everything I needed to say. Monday morning, I arrived at work to find Sylvia waiting in my office. Leonard, we need to talk. My stomach sank. What is it? Trevor Briggs came to see me yesterday. He claimed you have been experiencing cognitive difficulties and that your recent behavior, withdrawing support from museum events, making statements at your church, is evidence of declining mental capacity. He suggested I should be aware of it for workplace safety reasons. I sat down slowly. Do you believe him? No, I have worked with you 15 years. You are one of the most reliable, detail-oriented people I know. But I need to ask, are you experiencing any health issues I should know about? No, I am 63 and healthy. Trevor is lying because I stopped letting him use my reputation to advance his business interests. That is what I thought. I told him I would not discuss your employment status with him and asked him to leave, but he said he was concerned for your well-being and might need to pursue guardianship to protect you from making poor financial decisions. The room tilted. Guardianship? It is a legal process where someone is appointed to manage your affairs if you are deemed incompetent. But he would need medical evidence, court approval, and proof you cannot handle your own finances. He has none of those things. It is an empty threat. I am calling Harold. Harold was furious when I told him. This is exactly what I was afraid of. They are going to try to paint you as mentally incompetent to discredit everything you said and everything you filed. We need to get ahead of this immediately. How? We document your competence. I am arranging for you to see a doctor, a specialist in geriatric cognitive assessment. You will take a full evaluation. When it comes back showing you are completely capable, we will have medical evidence to counter any guardianship attempt. When? Tomorrow, and I am calling in a favor. Can you take another personal day? Yes. I went through the evaluation on Tuesday. Memory tests, logic puzzles, questions about current events, basic math, problem-solving scenarios. The doctor was thorough and kind. At the end, she smiled. Mr. Kane, I see no evidence of cognitive decline. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is sound, and your executive function is well above average for your age. She wrote a formal report. Harold filed it with the court as a preemptive measure. If they try to pursue guardianship now, they will be laughed out of court, he said, but the attacks kept coming. Natalie sent an email to family friends claiming I had become paranoid and hostile and asking them to help Dad get the support he needs. Several people called me, concerned. I had to explain that I was fine, that I was simply enforcing boundaries. Trevor contacted the museum board suggesting they review my employment status given recent erratic behavior. Sylvia shut it down immediately and told him future contact would be considered harassment. Through it all, I did not bend. On Wednesday, Harold called. Trevor's lawyer sent a letter demanding you cease and desist from making defamatory statements. I responded formally. Truth is an absolute defense. They have nothing. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Dad? Natalie's voice, small and shaky. Natalie, we need to talk. Please. Can I come over? I hesitated. Why now? Because I need to understand what is happening. Because Trevor is talking about filing legal action, and I am scared, and I just need to talk to my father. Silence hung between us. Please, Dad. I looked around my apartment, at the table where we used to do homework, at the photos on my shelf. No, I said quietly. What? No. You do not get to call me when you are scared and suddenly remember I am your father. You made your choice at those church doors. You chose Trevor's image over my dignity. You chose to lie about my health rather than stand up for me. Dad, I am not finished. For weeks now, you and Trevor have been attacking me, claiming I am incompetent, threatening guardianship, spreading lies, and now that none of it is working, you want to talk? She was crying. I did not know Trevor was doing all that. You are lying. You knew. You have always known. What do you want from me? Her voice broke. Nothing. There is nothing to fix. The house you live in, I own 70%. The trust for Mason, I control it completely. The church pledge, it is mine. Everything you tried to take, I have taken back. You are cutting us off. I am protecting myself. There is a difference. What about Mason? That hurt, but I had prepared for it. Mason has a $50,000 education trust that will make sure he can go to college without begging anyone for help. That is more than most grandparents do. But you will not see him? That depends entirely on you. If you can treat me with respect, if you can stop lying about my health, if you can acknowledge what you did and genuinely change, then maybe we can rebuild something, but I will not pay for access to my own family. I will not accept humiliation in exchange for occasional visits, and I will not let you erase me ever again. She was sobbing now. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Are you sorry you did it, or are you sorry it did not work? No answer. That is what I thought. Goodbye, Natalie. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I set the phone on the table and just sat there. I had done it. I had said everything I needed to say. I had drawn the line and held it. The phone rang again. Natalie. I did not answer. It rang 5 more times that night. I did not answer any of them. Thursday morning, Harold called with urgency in his voice. Leonard, Trevor filed something, a petition for emergency guardianship, claiming you are a danger to yourself due to diminished capacity. There is a hearing scheduled for next Monday. Can he do that? He can file it. Whether it goes anywhere is another matter. We have the cognitive assessment. We have documentation of all your financial decisions. We have witness statements. This is desperate, and it is going to backfire badly. What do I need to do? Show up to the hearing. Let me do the talking. Bring documentation of your competence, work evaluations, financial records, anything that demonstrates you are functioning at a high level. I spent the weekend gathering documents, performance reviews from the museum, bank statements showing careful budgeting, letters from the parish, the cognitive assessment. Harold reviewed everything Friday afternoon. This is perfect. Leonard, when we walk into that courtroom Monday, Trevor is going to try to make you look confused, unstable, manipulated. He is going to claim I have undue influence over you. I understand. Can you stay calm? Can you answer questions clearly without getting emotional? I thought about 34 years of dealing with difficult museum visitors, situations that required absolute composure. Yes, I said, I can do that. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. I dressed in my best suit. Harold met me at the courthouse. Remember, short answers, direct eye contact. You are here to demonstrate competence. We entered the courtroom. Trevor was there with his lawyer. Natalie sat in the gallery behind them, pale and drawn. Our eyes met for a moment. I looked away first. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and shrewd eyes. Judge Patricia Winters. Trevor's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we are here because we are deeply concerned about Leonard Kane's recent erratic behavior and diminished capacity. His son-in-law is petitioning for emergency guardianship to protect Mr. Kane from financial exploitation. Judge Winters looked at me, then at Harold. Does Mr. Kane have representation? Harold stood. Yes, Your Honor, Harold Quinn. We are here to demonstrate that this petition is baseless and retaliatory. Retaliatory? Mr. Kane recently took legal steps to protect his assets from misuse by Mr. Briggs. Within days, Mr. Briggs filed this petition. The timing is not coincidental. Trevor's lawyer interjected. Your Honor, the timing reflects growing concern. Mr. Kane has made dramatic changes to long-standing arrangements, made public statements that embarrassed his family. These are classic signs of cognitive decline. Judge Winters held up a hand. I will hear from both sides. Mr. Briggs, please take the stand. Trevor was sworn in. His lawyer began questioning. Can you describe your relationship with Leonard Kane? He is my father-in-law. He has been very generous to us over the years. And recently, have you noticed changes in his behavior? Yes, significant changes. He has become hostile and paranoid. He made accusations at our church in front of 200 people. He withdrew financial support. He has cut off contact with his daughter and refuses to see his grandson. Are these the actions of someone thinking clearly? No. I believe he is being manipulated by his lawyer. Harold stood. Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. Sustained. Stick to facts, Mr. Briggs. Harold stood for cross-examination. Mr. Briggs, you testified about an agreement to gradually buy Mr. Kane out of the house you live in. A part of that agreement involved paying rent, correct? Yes? How much rent have you paid in the last 18 months? Trevor hesitated. We had to pause payments due to cash flow issues. So $0. For 18 months, despite living in a house Mr. Kane largely paid for. Is that correct? It was temporary. Harold pulled out a document. Your Honor, this is the original LLC agreement. It clearly states that failure to pay rent for more than 12 months constitutes default and gives Mr. Kane the right to modify the arrangement. Mr. Kane did not act impulsively. He acted according to the contract Mr. Briggs himself signed. Judge Winters allowed the document. Harold continued. Mr. Briggs, you told church officials that Mr. Kane was experiencing health problems. Did Mr. Kane ever authorize you to speak on his behalf? Not formally, but yes or no? No. So you took it upon yourself to tell church officials that Mr. Kane was declining, and you refinanced the house and used the equity to fund your business. Did you tell Mr. Kane the refinancing would fund your business? The documents explained. Did you explicitly tell him? Yes or no? No. Harold turned to Judge Winters. Your Honor, this petition is not about protecting Mr. Kane. It is about controlling him. Mr. Briggs has been using Mr. Kane's money, property, and reputation for years. The moment Mr. Kane asserted his rights, Mr. Briggs filed this petition. This is financial abuse, not protection. Judge Winters said, I would like to hear from Mr. Kane himself. Please take the stand. I stood and walked to the witness stand. I was sworn in. Judge Winters looked at me directly. Mr. Kane, can you tell me today's date? Monday, November 25th, 2024. And why are you here today? My son-in-law has filed a petition claiming I am incompetent. I am here to demonstrate that I am fully capable. Can you describe your current living situation? I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment. I pay my own rent and bills. I manage my own finances. I work full-time as chief of security at the City Art Museum, a position I have held for 34 years. Has your employer expressed concerns about your performance? No, Your Honor. I can provide recent evaluations if needed. I have them here. These are excellent. Mr. Kane, can you explain why you made recent changes to your financial arrangements? I took a breath. Your Honor, for years, I provided significant financial support to my daughter and her husband. I paid for college, helped fund their wedding, purchased the majority share of their house, set up an education trust for my grandson, pledged money to our church. I did all of this because I loved my daughter. But over time, I realized I was being used. Trevor refinanced the house twice without fully disclosing he was using my equity to fund his business. He told people at church I was experiencing health problems. And finally, my daughter barred me from my grandson's baptism, claiming there was no place for me. After that, I consulted my attorney and reviewed all my arrangements. I discovered I had legal rights I did not know I possessed. I decided to exercise those rights. I did not act impulsively. I acted after careful consideration and proper legal counsel. And the trust for your grandson? The trust is protected for Mason's education. I have only added safeguards to ensure the money is used as intended. Mr. Kane, do you understand the consequences of your decisions? Yes, Your Honor. My daughter is angry. My relationship with her may never recover. But I am 63 years old. I have worked hard my entire life. I deserve to live my remaining years with dignity, not as someone who is ashamed to be seen with me. The courtroom was silent. Judge Winters looked at Trevor, then at Natalie, then back at me. Mr. Kane, if this petition is denied, do you intend to maintain any relationship with your daughter and grandson? That depends entirely on them, Your Honor. If my daughter can treat me with respect going forward, I would like very much to be part of my grandson's life. But I will not accept humiliation or exploitation. I am setting boundaries, not cutting ties. The choice of whether to respect those boundaries is theirs. Judge Winters nodded. She looked down at her notes. Then she looked up. I am going to rule from the bench. This petition is denied. Mr. Kane has demonstrated absolute competence. The cognitive assessment shows no decline. The financial decisions are not only reasonable, but legally sound and well documented. His employer confirms excellent performance. His testimony has been clear, coherent, and thoughtful. Furthermore, I am troubled by the timing of this petition. It appears Mr. Briggs is attempting to use guardianship to regain control over assets that legally belong to Mr. Kane. Mr. Briggs, I am denying your petition and issuing a protective order. You are not to contact Mr. Kane directly or through intermediaries except for essential family matters related to the minor child, and such contact must be in writing. Mr. Kane, you are free to manage your affairs as you see fit. This court finds you fully competent. Case dismissed. She struck her gavel. It was over. I walked out of the courtroom with Harold beside me. Behind us, I could hear Trevor's lawyer trying to calm him down. Natalie's voice, high and tearful. I did not turn around. Outside on the courthouse steps, Harold shook my hand. That was perfect. You were calm, clear, honest. Judge Winters saw right through them. What happens now? Now? Nothing. They cannot pursue guardianship again without new evidence. The protective order means Trevor cannot harass you. You are free. Free. The word felt strange. Thank you, Harold, for everything. You did the hard part. I just made sure the law was on your side. He paused. What are you going to do now? I looked out at the city. Gray sky, cold wind, November fading into December. I am going to go back to work. I am going to live my life, and I am going to stop letting people make me feel small. Harold smiled. Good. You have my number if you need anything. We parted ways. I drove back to my apartment, changed into comfortable clothes, and sat at my kitchen table. My phone buzzed. Omar. Heard you had the day off. Everything okay? I typed back. Everything is fine. Better than fine. Another buzz from Clara. Father Andrew and I heard about the court case. We are so glad it went well. I replied, Thank you. I appreciate the support. The phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I checked. It was Natalie. Her voice was small, defeated. Dad, I do not know what to say. I do not know how to fix this. Trevor is furious. He is talking about appeals. His parents are appalled. Everyone is looking at us like we are terrible people. And maybe we are. Maybe you are right about everything. I miss you. I miss my dad. Mason is growing, and you are not here to see it, and that is my fault. I am sorry. I am so, so sorry. I do not know if that matters anymore, but I needed to say it. The message ended. I sat there listening to the silence. Part of me wanted to call her back. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to rush over and hold my grandson, but I had spent too many years pretending. Too many years making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. I deleted the voicemail. The next morning, I returned to work. Sylvia called me into her office first thing. "Leonard, I heard about yesterday. I am glad it went well." "Thank you." Trevor Briggs tried to contact the board again last night. He claimed the judge was biased. I forwarded it to our legal counsel and blocked his number. He is not to contact the museum again. "I appreciate that." "Whatever personal issues you have with your family, they do not affect your work. As far as I am concerned, this matter is closed." I went to the security office. Omar was there, finishing his report. "So?" he said. "So what?" "Did you take back what was stolen?" I settled into my chair and looked at the monitors. Empty galleries, art waiting to be viewed. "Yes," I said. "I did." He nodded. "Good. World needs more people who stand up for themselves." The weeks passed. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it alone, which was peaceful. I made a small turkey breast, watched old movies, enjoyed the quiet. I did not hear from Natalie again. On the first Sunday of December, I returned to St. Matthew's. I sat in my usual spot. Natalie and Trevor were not there. Clara found me after the service. "Leonard, it is good to see you. It is good to be here. We finalized the donor recognition plaque. Your name is listed properly, just Leonard Kane, with gratitude for his generous support." "Thank you, Clara. Will you come see it?" I followed her to the parish hall. The renovation was complete, new flooring, fresh paint, updated lighting. On the wall, a bronze plaque listed donors. There, Leonard Kane, in gratitude for his commitment to our community. Not erased, not diminished, not shared, just my name acknowledged. "It is perfect," I said. December 15th, 2 weeks after the court case. Harold called. "They are dropping everything. Trevor's lawyer sent a formal letter acknowledging your competence and your right to manage your own affairs. It is basically a surrender." "Why now?" "Trevor's development project fell through. 3 major investors pulled out. Word got around about the guardianship case. People do not want to do business with someone who tries to declare their father-in-law incompetent to seize assets." After we hung up, I sat with the letter. It was filled with legal language, but the message was simple. They were giving up. I had won. That evening, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. Natalie stood in the hallway alone, wearing a simple coat. She looked tired. I opened the door, but did not invite her in. "Dad, please, can we talk?" "The protective order." I cleared it with Harold first. He has the time and location logged. Everything is proper. I stepped back and let her in. She stood in my living room, looking around. Her eyes landed on the photographs. Her as a child, Eleanor smiling. "I forgot how small this place is," she said quietly. "It is enough for me?" She turned to face me. "Dad, I do not have the words to make this right, but I need to try." I gestured to the kitchen table. We sat. "Trevor and I are separating," she said. I had not expected that. After the court case, everything fell apart. His investors pulled out, his project collapsed, his reputation is ruined, and he blames you for all of it. He wanted me to choose. Him or you. And I chose to leave, because I finally saw him clearly. Dad, he was using you, using us both. I told myself I did not see it, but that was a lie. I saw it. I just did not want to admit I had married someone who would do that. Tears rolled down her cheeks. At the baptism, when I told you there was no place for you, I can still see your face. You looked so hurt, and I let you walk away. You made your choice. I made the wrong choice, choosing image over substance, Trevor's approval over your love, comfort over integrity. She wiped her eyes. I do not expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and I am ashamed. I sat there watching my daughter cry. "Where is Mason?" I asked. "With Trevor's mother. I have temporary custody. Dad, he asks about you. I show him your picture. I want him to know you." "The trust is still protected. He will have money for college." "I know. You made sure he would be taken care of even if we never spoke again." She nodded, tears falling. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. 34 years old, her mother's eyes, my stubborn chin, flawed and damaged, and she had hurt me deeply. She was also my daughter. "Natalie," I said slowly, "I cannot go back to how things were. I will not be treated as an embarrassment or an ATM. Those boundaries are not negotiable. I understand. If you want to rebuild something, and I am not saying we can, it has to be based on honesty and respect. Real respect. I want to try, she whispered. Please, Dad. I was quiet for a long moment. Then start by bringing Mason to visit. Once a week, Sunday afternoons. You come too. We sit at this table, have coffee, let him get to know his grandfather. No Trevor, no performance, just family. Really? On one condition. The first time you lie to me, the first time you disrespect me, it is over. Permanently. I will not give third chances.
I understand. I swear. I stood. She stood too, hesitantly. Can I? She gestured awkwardly toward me. I opened my arms. She stepped into them, and I held my daughter while she cried. She felt smaller than I remembered, fragile, human. I am so sorry, Daddy, she sobbed against my shoulder. I closed my eyes and felt the weight of everything, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal, but also something else. Something like hope, not forgiveness yet, not trust, but a door left open instead of slammed shut. Sunday, I said quietly. 2:00. Bring Mason. She pulled back, looking up at me with red eyes. I will, I promise. She left. I stood in my apartment, looking at the closed door. Outside, the city kept moving, people living their lives, making choices, unaware of the shift in mine. I stood at the window, watching the December evening settle over the streets. Warm lights in windows, cars passing, another day ending. My phone buzzed. Harold. Everything okay? I replied, Yes, everything is okay. I made tea and sat at my kitchen table. My notebook lay open to the line I had written weeks earlier. I will stop paying to be erased. I had done exactly that, and in the aftermath I found something unexpected. Not happiness, not peace, but dignity. The dignity of knowing my worth, of drawing boundaries and keeping them, of refusing to disappear. I looked at Eleanor's photograph. I miss you, Elle. I think you'd be proud of me. Tomorrow I would go back to work, watch the monitors, do my job.
Sunday, maybe Natalie would bring Mason. Maybe it would work out, maybe it wouldn't. But either way, I would still be Leonard Kane, 63, widower, chief of security, donor. A man who had finally learned to value himself. And that was enough.